Welcome to LifeMaven podcast, where you can learn to live in the energy of your legacy now and not later. And today we have an amazing guest, really, who is going to help you remember how to live in the energy of your legacy now. We have Rena Yudkowsky. Now, Rena is a memory coach. She is the CEO of Memory Matters. She teaches online memory improvement courses to everybody 50 and over, so you can age confidently. She's a speaker on global webinars on memory and aging. Welcome, 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 Rena Yudkowsky. What is it that drew you to helping people with their memory as opposed to anything else? Because you have a wide range of a background.
Thank you. That's a good question. So it really started when I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, I didn't want to go to camp. So I went to the nursing home to volunteer. And I found that I became very alive and I loved being around older people. And I felt like I could give them so much. I could give them so much to improve their quality of life in the here and now. Just by being there, by spending time with them, by giving them attention, by listening to them. And that's what has sparked my career in gerontology. I didn't realize it at the time that that's where I was going to end up. But after spending many summers in the nursing homes, I then pursued that as a degree, ended up with a degree in master's in social work, and I concentrated in gerontology. And then I just pursued that. And I worked a lot with people with memory issues. And then I was just so interested in what makes memory work? How could we improve our memory? And I did a lot of research, took the courses, read the books, and eventually put a course together myself in English. I live in Israel, so I took a course in Hebrew first, but then I translated and used parts of that course in my course and expanded and added stuff that I thought was interesting and ended up teaching a memory improvement course to seniors live here in Israel for many years. And then eventually put that online. And that's where I am now.
When you mentioned that you came alive with the older people, and it's interesting because I agree, this is something that we kind of share. What was it in you that you sparked that aliveness? What was it? Was it connection? Was it feeling with your past? Can you identify that? It's very interesting to me.
It is interesting. I remember sitting in a college class in graduate school thinking, why do I love working with older people? And I was trying to figure this out. And all of a sudden, I had this epiphany moment. And it was the life wisdom. If you just talk to someone older for 5 minutes or even a minute, there's an incredible amount of life wisdom. And it's I want that. So yes, it's the connection. Yes, it's the life wisdom that I'm selfish. I can glean that, and it's also the feeling of giving that, by doing something so simple as connecting with them, you can make such a difference in their quality of life. So I call it a Babi Neshama. A Babi Neshama is an older soul affinity, like an affinity to older people. And
can you say that word again?
A Babi Neshama. Babi means grandmother, and Neshama means soul.
Neshama, Babi Neshama. For those of us who aren't so great at Hebrew, Babi Neshama. Thank you. I just want to be sure we all get that word.
Yeah, it's my coin term.
It's beautiful. And so you felt this Babi Neshama, and that's where you could identify so much.
Yeah.
I think you've really hit something, because I was the kind of kid that would go around to the older neighbors and introduce myself when the kids weren't there. There's also, for me, a reassurance that the world is still going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something about it that they've really lived through the history that maybe at the time they thought, oh my gosh, we're never going to make it. And they made it and they thrived. And I felt hope.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Tremendous hope, especially when you're talking to let's call them the very elderly, right? Even the Holocaust survivors. It's unbelievable what they went through, the unbelievable amount of faith and hope and resilience and, just hanging in there with again, so much adversity. And you speak to those people and it's just, you get so much hope.
Where I grew up, they didn't want to talk about it. As they age, there was a change, or perhaps you didn't have that experience where you grew up. But I definitely did. People just said no. And as a matter of fact, I was reprimanded by my grandmother when I saw the numbers. And she said, don't you ever ask somebody like that. That is rude.
So I think there's both types of people. I definitely grew up with some Holocaust survivors that told their whole story and wrote the books. And I had a neighbor who wrote a book about it. So I definitely grew up with those types. And then, yes, I know I've heard from my friends whose grandparents would not talk about it. It was taboo. They didn't want to bother anyone. It was too much pain. They didn't want their kids to live in the shadow of that. So I think you have some and some. I wonder, it's an interesting thing. I wonder if as people get older, they do open up and they do want to share more because they realize that like maybe they're not going to live forever and maybe they do want their family to know, even if they didn't talk about it before. I don't know. It's an interesting point.
Of course, I know we're all different. I get the drift. There was knowledge that you could gain from these people. And when I was growing up, they were holding back this knowledge. What is it that you find when you work in this area that is perhaps something that is a big issue for the people overall? Or because frankly, I get a little nervous. Sometimes I lose my keys, okay?
Yeah.
I go in the kitchen and I'm like, wait a minute. I know I came in here for something. Yeah. I know I did. Or I can't quite hear. And I think, oh, are you going deaf? Are you one of the, how do you know the difference?
Yeah. So that is, you are not alone. A lot of people misplace their keys and don't know what they came into the room for. So that is very much what drives what I'm doing. That fear and the anxiety that comes along with memory loss. I want to give people the confidence to believe in their memories. So I do talk about abnormal memory loss versus normal memory loss. One of the webinars I love to do is called What Did I Come to the Fridge For? And in there I talk about 4 techniques to improve your focus and memory. And I'll calm you down, Jody, and this will help other people too. When you go into a room and can't remember what you came for, I maintain that is not a memory issue. That is a focus issue. Because what happened? Your brain went in a lot of other directions, right? You thought, I need the milk from the fridge. You go to the fridge, you open the fridge, and you go, now, what did I come here for?
Yes.
And why? Because in between the thought, I need the fridge, and when you got to the fridge, what happened? Your brain went all over the place, right? So when you get to the fridge, you have to sort of rewind your thoughts. You know, they say we have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts going on in our heads. So that's internal distraction. There's also external distraction, the cell phone, the beepers and timers and notifications and doorbell and dog barking and whatever other distractions are in our environment or externally. So when you get to the fridge and open the fridge and have no idea what you came for, it's because you got distracted from the thought. It's not memory loss. I'll tell you there's a list of things actually that differentiate between normal and abnormal. And I have that in a pretty checklist. So if you sign up to my email list from my website, which Jody will share that information, you can get that checklist. But I'll share one important principle there so that you know and you can allay your fears. Ask yourself, when let's call it a senior moment or a memory lapse happens to you. Ask yourself, is this impeding or interfering with my daily functioning? So if you forget your keys once a month, you're probably not going to be too worried, right? But if it's happening 6 times a day and you can't get to the doctor's appointment on time because you can't get out the door because you can't find your keys, that's interfering with your daily functioning. And then it might be more of an issue because it's more pervasive. Usually that example of keys is not in and of itself is not worrisome. But if that's one thing of many, many issues where you can't function independently and you can't, your daily functioning is affected by your memory loss, then it's something more to worry about. So it's always how pervasive and how much is it interfering with your daily life.
What is a senior? What's the definition of a senior?
That's a good question. I'm always trying to figure out what to call people over a certain age. And then what is that age? Because like you said, I meet people on the street who are 40 and tell me they can't remember anything, right? But usually, so I have to define it in some way. I like to work with people over 50 that start to have memory concerns. And then we teach techniques and we talk about lifestyle factors that can help us age more gracefully. Now, I also work with the 85-year-olds and they also really want to hold on to whatever, their sharpness. So I say I work with people over 50 in terms of, I use the word senior just because it's like a universal language, but senior in different places means different things. In America, we call it over 65 as a senior, right? But the 50-year-olds don't want to be called seniors. I once put this in my Facebook group. I have a Facebook group called Memory Matters, tips and tricks for midlifers and seniors. So I wrote midlifers and seniors there to define that. But I put it in there. What do you want to be called? And I put a bunch of names. What do you like to be termed? And of course, everyone had two opinions, not one. This one wants to be called retired, and this one wants to be called empty nester, and this one wants to be called baby boomer, and this wants to be generation this, and so many different names. So it's funny. I couldn't really get a consensus. So I guess because I just use the word senior because I feel like it's a catch-all, and some people like that and some people don't like that. So, and then if I have to, I think on my website, I write, says like over 50, because usually people in the 50s do start to be a little concerned about their memory, whether it's brain fog, whether it's, sleeping problems, whether it's menopause. There's so many causes for memory issues. And that's also an important point, that when people, like when you have, like you said, when you forget something, you think, oh my gosh, am I losing it? But there are so many other factors that could be causing your memory loss. It doesn't have to be dementia. And that's always a freeing thought. If you slept 5 hours last night, is your brain going to be working sharply? No. If your estrogen is really, really low, estrogen's one of the activities of estrogen is focus and memory. So if your progesterone and estrogen is totally out of whack because of menopause, you're going to be having brain fog, right? Stress. If you come to me and say, I have 10 stresses in my life right now, and I'm not breathing, your brain function is going to be impaired. So the minute you forget something, don't assume you have dementia. Yes, if it's serious, we want to go to a doctor, we want to check it out and see what we could do. But the minute you misplace your keys, it does not mean you're getting dementia. There could be so many other reasons, right? You have too much on your head. You didn't drink enough. Hydration is such a big one. When we are not hydrated, we can't think straight. So there's so many different factors that go into cognitive health or brain health. So it's good news because we can control those things. We can drink more. We can eat less sugar, which also makes our brain foggy. We can try to regulate the hormones. We can sleep better. There's so many lifestyle factors that we can do to help. And the biggest one really is exercise. So just like when you pour water on a plant, it grows. When you exercise, it grows your brain, like physical exercise. It actually creates more BDNF. BDNF is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's like the growth factor in your brain.
Really?
So if you say to me, I'm like really having a hard time, I'm going to ask you, how much do you exercise? What do you eat that's healthy or not healthy? How much do you sleep? How much stress is in your life? Do you meditate? All these lifestyle factors. The exciting, empowering information on this is that they say about 90% of the factors for dementia, risk factors, are preventable. 90%.
90%?
At least. I've heard neurologists even say more than that, but I'm scared to quote it. But at least 90% of the risk factors for dementia are preventable or treatable.
Wow, they could put you out of business someday, huh?
Well, no, because I like working with people that are scared of their memory, and then we improve it and they see it's not dementia.
Good point. Good point. Now, I wanted to bring that up. This is something that really is on my mind. I know people, including me, that have been diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
Now, is it the chicken or the egg? Because there are times where, yes, I forget. Yes, okay, not the Alzheimer. But then there's just, how do you know as you get older if it's a chicken or the egg?
It's not. It's both. It's complex, right? It's both.
Yeah.
ADHD causes focus and issues. Aging, put that together. So here's the bottom line. You don't know. It's not the chicken or the egg. It's both. It's about figuring out what you need to live more happily, healthfully, independently, So there's a great ADHD coach that I follow. Her name is Alana Stern. I actually interviewed her on my Facebook group, and she talks about adult ADHD and what we can do to live more happily and gently and being patient with ourselves. And we talked about focus and memory. It was a very interesting interview. So my point is, if you know you have ADHD, so yeah, that is going to affect your aging process and your brain health and your cognition. So what does it mean? It means you need more support, right? We just need support for our focus. We need really good techniques. For example, I'll give you one that helps everyone, but for sure, people with ADHD. Um, Stop multitasking, right? I bet you that you try to multitask a lot. Most people do.
Let me ask you this though. I'll say, Jody, you're going to set aside an hour to do this. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. But then look what happened over here.
That's where you stop the multitasking and you stay focused on the task to the point of like even set a timer for if you want to spend an hour on a task, you work on that till the timer goes off. You actually turn off your phone. You turn off your notifications if you have to, so that you do not get distracted by all that stuff. And you also find what works for you. So it's stop multitasking, which means stop trying to do so many things at once. It just trips up our brain. It makes us feel stressed. And it actually lowers our IQ temporarily by 15 points. Did you know that?
No.
Multitasking temporarily lowers your IQ by 15 points. Very interesting stat. So it's really about not trying to do so many things at once. Every time your attention goes that way, you go boop. It goes that way, you go right,
Yep.
and it's just about keep bringing yourself back to the task. And if you're scared you're going to forget something, you just keep writing down on that piece of paper every thought that comes up of what you need to do. You keep writing it down instead of going to do it.
Yeah, and you don't need a diagnosis to do this, guys. I mean, because
Right.
sometimes I think sometimes we get caught up in our diagnosis. I didn't get diagnosed until I was in my 50s.
Yeah.
So I just knew that there was something that I needed to do differently. And so this is not just for people that have been diagnosed. I mean, this is something that we can help all of us.
As you get older, one thing that does change and does get more difficult is I'm trying to do more than one thing at a time. So even if we were able to get away with it, quote unquote, when we were younger, when we get older, it does get more difficult. So we do have to be attentive to that. I also want to say the solution to what the example we were talking about before with the fridge, and because it ties in here. So I have a thought, I need the milk from the fridge. If I keep saying the word milk, 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 till I get to the fridge, I open the fridge and get out the milk. Because what did I do? It's a silly, simple solution. What did I do? I just kept my mind focused on getting the milk. It sounds silly, but that is the answer to that scenario, which happens all the time because we have internal distractions. But if you take away the internal distraction by saying milk, 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 milk till you get to the fridge, you'll know what you want the fridge for.
I love it. So let me ask you a question, kind of turning the tables, so to speak.
Yeah.
You've got a big event coming up. How are you going to stay focused? Milk, 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 right?
So hard. Yeah. We're making a wedding in 3 weeks. So it's so much to do. Yeah, I have lists of stuff. I keep asking myself, what's the next best step? What's the next best task I need to do? Because I get very overwhelmed and very hard to focus and don't know what to focus on. And like you said before, you just want to do nothing.
Yeah, really.
So I have my list. I'm trying to prioritize. Time blocking, right? You say at this time I'm doing this task. Now, does it always happen? No, it doesn't always happen because other things do come up. But you say I want to do X, Y, and Z, but if you don't put that on your calendar at a certain time, it's not going to happen. So time blocking it to a certain time. And then and just I keep saying to myself, okay, what's the next step? What's the next one thing I have to do? There's something called actually I learned this from Alana Stern. There's something called a one task list. So you might have 20 tasks on your to-do list today. Then you pick the one thing that you need to do now and you write that down. One task list. So right now I'm going to write the email. When I'm done that, I go back to my list and say, what's the next one task I'm going to do? And you pick that off and write that down. It's just helped keeping yourself very focused and not overwhelmed because it's very easy to get overwhelmed.
What helps keep you on course, be it emotionally or whatever, words or a quote, or what helps keep you on your course?
On my course. Okay. So I love this. This has to do with my life and what I do. And it's a quote. I actually heard it from Jim Quick, but he quotes it from Henry Ford. It's whether you believe you can or you can't, you are right. So if you believe you cannot exercise, then guess what? You're not going to exercise. But if you believe that you can walk 10 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day, then you can. Same thing with your memory. If you say to me, oh, Rena, I can't remember your name's too hard to remember. What's the chance you'll remember my name? Very slim.
None.
But if in your brain, you believe that you can remember any name of anyone that comes to you, then you'll be able to. Now, what helps back this up is the techniques that I teach, right? So when people say, I can't remember your name, I say, and I launch into my, my talk. And, there's easy techniques that could help you remember my name. And I teach that in my course. I teach that in my master class because names is a big one. Most people have a hard time with names, or they think they're having a hard time with names, but they've convinced themselves that they can't remember names. But the minute I tell you, you can do it, if you believe you can do it, guess what? You can. So it's whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. I think that's a driving force.
I love that. It reminds me of that book, The Little Train That Could.
Yes,
I think I can. I think I can. I guess we're not as complex humans as we think we are in some ways, our basic needs. Please share with our listeners how you can help them.
Okay, great. So anyone that's concerned about their memory or wants to improve their memory, I have courses, membership. I have a membership called Remembership.
Oh, I love that.
It's very cute. Yeah. That's like a do-it-yourself. I send out weekly videos, short videos. The course is a long course and it's intense and it's great. But if people don't have time for that, I have shorter things. So I have my Remembership. I have my You Name It Masterclass, which is all about names. And then I have my favorite and newest program, which I really invite you all to join. It's called Empower. And Empower is a WhatsApp brain training group. So it's a WhatsApp chat that I run. And every day I post a quick brain exercise. Sometimes it's like a word thing. Sometimes it's a math thing. And sometimes it's just something more lifestyle related, like fun stuff. So every day you're getting something that will work on your brain. And it's very inexpensive and very fun. And you can do it at your own time. So that's called Empower. And I think, Jody, I sent you the link for that. If people want to join that, that's very inexpensive and fun. And, you can cancel anytime. And I also have a once a month program on the first Monday of the month called Monday Memory Motivation, MMM. So, and that's a 45-minute live Zoom with me in the group where we do a memory tip, a brain exercise, and a Q&A. So that I have a lot going on. You can just check out my website. Everything's on my website. And, but the Empowers, I'm really enjoying the Empower, and everyone in it is really enjoying it. Because people say, like, where do I start with brain exercises? And this is a very easy place to start. It's like we said before, it's very bite-sized, so it's not overwhelming. And it's like right there on your phone. It comes to you every day. So it's fun.
Very easy. Very, very easy. Well, this is so wonderful that you are allowing us to get to feel better about ourselves, really.
Yeah.
Starting with our brain going out. And thank you for helping us do that today on LifeMaven podcast. It's been a delight having you. And thank you for being a part of it. You are just, what fun.